In that time, our world has taken so many steps in the wrong direction. In the negative utopia, science, technology, social organization, dehumanization.
Christy, we are playing basically the beginning of the classic news section of the Leo Zagami show, and later on we will also dance to the Exploring the Illuminati.
All these dances.
All these dances! Okay. Time for the news. We have a limited amount of time for the news today because then we're going to dedicate ourselves to the special. So that's why we cut short with the opening tune. But people like the opening tune.
I like it. It's so cool. It's like really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Vincenzo Viceversa, Medieval.
Negative utopia, science, technology, social organization, dehumanization.
Kind of puts together all the elements that Vincenzo, who is also the graphic designer of all our book covers, puts together. So it's very interesting. Okay, welcome to the Leo Zagami show with Leo and Christy, Saturday, March 9 of the year of the Lord 2024.
Hi.
How was your week, Christy?
Somebody had a birthday.
I had a birthday. We celebrated. We went out and ate some Thai food. It was very nice.
It was very nice.
And we had a Boston cream pie.
That was good.
It was my 54th birthday.
You look so beautiful. You look so young. You're so handsome.
Thank you very much. I needed that ego.
You know what he said today?
What did he say?
He said you love me more than Parmesan.
Yes, and I
I
love
was
a lot
like,
of Parmesan.
wow, that's amazing.
Yes, because Parmesan is a serious thing for me. And some people don't like Parmesan, but for me, Parmesan
It's very serious for him. He
It's
loves
a
me more.
religion. Parmesan is a religion for me. Okay, so 54 years.
Don't forget the sponsors too.
Yeah, we need to mention the sponsor, but that's your job.
Yeah.
So who are the sponsors today?
Today, our sponsors are Bruce Kodish and Melgar Zadaminta. Thank you very much, everyone. And for the people that bought the book, thank you.
Yes.
And the continued support of our show, thank you.
Today, for the section explaining the Illuminati Occult, we're going to be exposing the SABBATEAN FRANKIST HERESY. So we have a lot of books here ready with all the citations from all kinds of my own books.
Am I going to have to read
other kind of book. Well, it's going to be an interesting hour of action, in-depth investigation of a subject where a lot of people really misunderstand, and it's of desperate need and importance.
Yeah, I think so.
Because otherwise you fall into the trap of anti-Semitism. So really the SABBATEAN FRANKIST heresy is very important to discuss. And today we're going to unveil it, making sure that even those people who never heard about it understand the importance of the SABBATEAN Frankist and what they represent within, of course, both the realm of secret society as well as the profane realm with what goes on in the world today. Okay, but we usually start with the news. So the news today, there is a lot of interesting news. We had a State of the Union.
It was really shocking.
Yeah, because here the situation is the following. Now, I mean, we have to analyze a little bit this gentleman who calls himself Joe Biden, because, and who, of course, is at the moment our current
Oh,
president.
goodness gracious, where did he come from?
Yeah, well, this is a photo that was made of him during the event.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's lovely.
Kind
He's
of.
like so like.
Now,
He doesn't look
now
himself right there.
Yeah, no, but there's two possibilities, because a lot of people are talking about the possible use of drugs during the event. He became pretty wild, to tell you the truth. He became
He was
pretty
wired,
wild.
is what he was.
And he was wild enough to say that he might have either done two things here. Either he was using the drugs, or either he was possessed after a demonic ritual. Now, both possibilities, but
Or how about two together?
maybe that even. But a lot of people suggested that we look into the drug Adderall. Now, I want to see if in English because apparently they suggested that he could have used a mix of Adderall and amphetamine. So Adderall is a very specific.
Is that for attention deficit disorder?
Yes, for the cognition. I mean, it's Adderall is a drug that basically is a combination drug called mixed amphetamine salts containing 4 salts of amphetamine, and it's used for the treatment of deficit hyperactivity disorder, narcolepsy.
They give it to kids, I think.
It's also illicit when you use it, for example, during athletic performance, as an enhancer. But a lot of people said that it's a perfect stimulant that you can use for not such a long time, but for at least a couple of hours. It will affect really very much the central nervous system. So it's a stimulant in this case. And it's used in therapeutic doses for cognitive effects like euphoria, change in sex drive, increased wakefulness, and improved cognitive control. This will also match what he said, oh, I'm still very sexual, whatever, that the sex is my secret or something like that. He said something stupid like that. But the sex drive of Joe Biden could be maybe Adderall. So Adderall is a drug that, and of course amphetamines, but Adderall seems to have been the drug a lot of people say he might have used. Of course, we also have the possibility, and that will be, here I want to show an article by the Gateway Pundit that talks about the fact that he might have been, even on Fox today, they said it openly, that somebody said it, that he didn't look normal, and some people have wondered if he has made use of some kind of magical potion, a little bit like Asterix. So was Biden on drugs for the State of the Union? White House official retweeted the reporter's comment. I guess there's no Adderall shortage at the White House. So Adderall is indicated as really a possibility for Joe Biden. Plus,
I saw Jill in the audience, and as a wife, I saw her very worried. I didn't see her like I mean the other ones, they were worried before, but when he started speaking and he was like that, so much, they put the camera on her a lot, and I think she was worried that he wouldn't be able to take it, because that's a lot. He's old. So, I mean, you can give somebody so many drugs. I mean, how many drugs does he take? And how many is he going to have to take to go up against Donald? Because, I mean, it's an impossible feat. So good luck. No luck to him.
No luck to him. But
No.
At one point, there was Mike Johnson who was making faces for the whole course of the of 1 hour and I think 9 minutes. He didn't really, I mean, compared to Donald J. Trump, who goes for 2 hours, no problem, 2 hours and a half, no problem. He cut short at 1 hour and 9 minutes. But in the middle, he was just, watch the face of Mike Johnson. Behind Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, who of course represents the Republican Party.
I have something to add about his speech.
Yes.
I heard one of the commentators, I think it was on Fox, say that I think that he was only fiery when he was talking bad about the American people or America, like those parts of his speech. And it didn't matter, you know, he was just, whenever he talked about the Americans, especially us MAGA megas, whatever we are, but you know, it's like,
yeah, it was the most divisive speech I've ever heard. I mean, there was nothing unifying, those unifying moments that we often found with other presidents before, where, you know, you attempt at least in 4 or 5 occasions during the speech to get a common applause from both sides. Now, that was really not happening here. It was an hyper-partisan speech, a campaign speech, rather than a State of the Union, a State of the Disunion. And that was really sad, I think, for America to see something like that. And there is the possibility that he was under spirit possession, because remember one thing about spirit possession. Apart from the fact that spirit possession is in a study that was funded by the National Institute of Mental Health on 74% of 488 societies and, you know, relative religions around the world, there was found the presence of this spirit possession. And one of the characteristics has always been the manifestation of superhuman strength. And so, okay, he was reading for a teleprompter. So guys, you know, I mean, he could have practiced, no problem. And apparently Mike Johnson said that he mumbled a couple of times. He also missed a couple of lines that probably were there. So, you know, we don't know the entire speech because this is what we got. But we see, you know, that he appeared energetic. And that was the change that made the Democrats talk for now days on end on their propaganda channels, CNBC, MSNBC, CNN, and whatever, NBC and all the rest, ABC, CBS, about how energetic was Joe. But Joe probably, like I said, there was either on drugs or either he was under, I mean, or either he had done some kind of voodoo ritual similar to what the guy in Haiti is doing. I just published an article today about this gang leader turned commander in Haiti. I want to show you the article that I published today. You can find it on leozagami.com together with other articles that I post. It gets uploaded every few days. We have articles, but the article today is regarding somebody who I have already discussed, also here on the show, Jimmy Cherisier, known also as Barbecue, that's his nickname.
Barbecue.
Yeah, then the gang leader, who, this is very elegant, I put a white thing. Usually it's not like that. But basically, he...
Oh, is it because it's a white suit?
Yeah, very elegant. Puts himself a white suit. But this was an article I published on February 2023. And here we see the compass and the square after he was elected as worship master of one of the most important lodges in Haiti. So here instead, check out what he says, because here he says, I will sell my soul to the devil, literally. This is serious stuff, guys, because when somebody from Haiti says they're selling the soul, they're sleeping with the devil. It's not just talk in Haiti.
Je dis, premier mouvement n'a fait, premier bataille n'a fait, n'a goumé contre Ariel Henry jusqu'à dernier goût de sang nous. Sam ka dit, n'a goumé contre Ariel Henry jusqu'à ce qu'il nous ait une démission. Et nous te répété déjà, et nous-mêmes nous vivons ensemble. On parle de non vivre ensemble.
I'm ready, he says, to make an alliance with the devil, ready to sleep in the same bed as the devil. Now, people don't take this seriously in the West, of course, this kind of speech. But here we're talking about Haiti, and the whole revolutionary movement that led to the independence of Haiti was based on voodoo. So this is serious stuff, guys. This guy might really...
Is that like The Serpent and the Rainbow? Is that Haiti?
Yeah,
that terrible movie from the 90s.
You made me want to watch it. I didn't watch it because you made me watch it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then you turned it off.
It's too scary. I don't like The Living Dead.
nous prêts pour nous faire alliance à diable, nous prêts pour nous dormir même côté à diable, nous avons joué côté Ariel Henry.
Oh. It's absolutely catastrophic. It being the human rights situation, the humanitarian situation.
Here are the United Nations. You see, the thing with the Illuminati is to create a problem and give you a solution. So who is going to bring the solution now? The United Nations? And are the United Nations going to recognize Mr. Barbecue? Well, it's all very Masonic. I mean, you saw Mr. Barbecue with the compass and the square. The United Nations is a Masonic organization, so the whole thing could really well be within the frames of some kind of Masonic deal, create the problem and find the solution. Instead, what I'm going to show you now regards Pope Francis. Shocking words earlier today by Pope Francis about Ukraine, because guys, for the first time, and this is really the first time to my knowledge, Pope Francis talks in this interview saying that
che è più forte
that Ukraine should raise the white flag.
Pensa al popolo.
That Zelensky basically should think about his people and that Ukraine should raise the white flag and be open to negotiations.
Quella parola negoziare.
So negotiation, that is what is happening. And the Pope also mentions within his interview what is going on in Turkey, in Istanbul, where Zelensky arrived to talk with Erdogan. So this is a very particular situation that is unfolding that seems to really prepare the way for a possible peace deal before Trump arrives and they make all brutta figura. I think that, you understand, they want to save the day. Zelensky was received today in Erdogan's palace in Istanbul for this meeting regarding, of course, a possible peace solution. Zelensky is still a little bit resisting, and instead the Pope is pushing, as well as, of course, Erdogan. Let's see what's up. So this is Zelensky, who for once, instead of receiving powerful leaders from all around the world, has to go to Istanbul to visit the super powerful Erdogan, who is somehow breaking, how you say, breaking a deal?
Making a deal? Breaking a deal? Making a deal? Is he making or is he breaking? I think he's making a deal. He's trying to make a deal.
He's kind of working some kind of deal. I don't know. The thing is, they don't want to make a brutta figura. You know brutta figura? How you say in America, brutta figura?
It's just it's like a bad impression.
Yeah, you don't want to basically get Trump to arrive in a few months and actually in less than a year when he hopefully take his oath, he will be already, in charge also as commander-in-chief, and that will be a possible end of this conflict. By the way, we had the head of Hungary, Orban visiting Trump in Florida. Everybody talking bad about Orban because Orban is very close to Putin. It's very criticized by Joe Biden. Is part of NATO, but still kind of. So when you have Trump, Orban, then NATO has also Erdogan, who is very close to Putin, believe it or not, even if he plays very ambiguous role, because the Turks are always very kind of playing a game of so here we are, I think, with these people desperate now to make a peace deal before Trump arrives, simply because they don't want Trump to do the peace deal. This is the whole...
Because you know he would.
He will, absolutely, he will. And at that point, you know, they will make absolutely a brutta figure of themselves, a bad impression, because...
they can't hurry up and try to fix things when everything's been wrong for the whole time, you know? And
but the fact that the Pope is encouraging Zelensky to raise a white flag, I mean, this is pretty heavy news, guys, for Zelensky. And he, in the same hours, he was there with Erdogan, and he can continue being, you know, defiant. But at one point, they will tell him, listen, we're not going to give you any more money. You can do your own war on your own with your Ukrainians. And I'm sure that he's going to have a lot of problems, because in Ukraine, there's already a lot of people who are fed up, a lot of wives, mothers, daughters, sisters who are fed up of seeing their relatives dying in this hideous war. So here we are with the first part of the show, as you know, exposing the news of the week, presenting the news of the week. We talked about various things up until now, but one of the most shocking things that I want to present now is this Palestinian official from the official Palestinian, the one that is supposed to be the more moderate, making a comment that is absolutely out of order. What I'm going to show you now is basically coming from a member of Al-Fatah, which is the Palestinian National Liberation Movement. And what he's saying is incredibly shocking. He says, I'm not a fan of Hitler, but when Hitler perpetrated the Holocaust, he did it for obvious reasons. Let's see.
أن أقول للناس لماذا حدثت الهولوكوست؟ أنا لا أحب هتلر، ليس حبيبي هتلر، ولكن هتلر عندما قام بالهولوكوست كان بأسباب واضحة.
Here is a perfect, let's say, news to introduce the subject of today, because one thing that you have to understand, guys, is that 100 years ago, the Germans and then Hitler, when he came to power, he really pushed for this terrible thing, which eventually became the Holocaust, also because he made the deal with the Grand Mufti. We talked about it in our past show. So basically it's this. For the first time, the Shia and the Sunnis kind of came together. There was a terrible pogrom that went on after in the early 40s in Iraq. All this basically just to make understand that it's obviously a genocide, something terrible that is ongoing, maybe even in Gaza now. There is people dying, at least 30,000. That is the official statements. We can't trust, of course, Hamas, but everything is possible. But think about it. These people instigated the Holocaust, the same people, the very, very, very same people, the Palestinians and the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, and now they're simply getting back their karma. I know, it's terrible, but think about it. 30,000 is a drop of blood compared to 6 million. So, guys, try to a little bit, you know, I understand that Hamas is not a benevolent institution. Try to wake up a little bit. Today, we're going to talk about the Sabbatean Frankist, of course. We're going to be doing it in a few minutes, starting with their history and everything. But, of course, when we see a scene like this one, we have to understand that all these organizations have been generated, created, fomented by Western intelligence agencies, and at the end, of course, there is victims in the civilian population, but the civilian population is protecting organization. It's like they are protecting organizations that have been created by their own enemies, because you see, the Western powers don't really want the stabilization of the area for a number of reasons, and that has been like this for decades, for a long time, since the fall of the Ottoman Empire, that created this kind of problem that was first discussed in the Sykes-Picot Agreement. And then, you know, the English did the Balfour Declaration. We discussed it. Not this foreign minister, Balfour, he sent this letter to Lord Rothschild, basically incentivizing the colonization by Jewish people of what was that territory that used to be, Palestine, how you want to call it. And today we have the destruction of the image of Lord Balfour by one of these activists. They literally destroyed the painting that cost also not only a lot of money, but it's an art piece that you can't really put a price on, because it's a testimony of history. Look what this person did to the image of Lord Balfour. Okay, so this is what's going on in the world today. This is crazy stuff, guys. Now, we arrived to the Balfour Declaration also because of what was going on in the First World War between Great Britain and Germany. Germany, after the Balfour Declaration, wanted to do their own declaration and wanted to offer something to the Jewish community. And that happened with contacting the vizier, the Grand Vizier, the guy who was in charge of the Ottoman Empire's politics and everything. And at that point, the Pasha did also a statement in favor of opening for the colonization and for, you know, inviting Jewish people to claim the land back. All this basically is done in a way that it will unfortunately create a lot of problems, because of course it was the end of the Ottoman Empire. For hundreds of years the Ottoman Empire, 800 years, had ruled all those areas. The instability that followed led to decisions that still today unfortunately can be in some way regretted and are regretted. But I mean, destroying the painting of somebody like Lord Balfour today is completely demented. So, like, we have some very demented hackers, trolls in the chat. I don't know how you want to call them.
The most evil. They say the opposite.
Well,
I mean, they say the opposite. So whatever you are, they'll say the opposite.
Yes.
So
yes,
you know, they're evil.
Yeah, but I mean, it's because we definitely are saying the truth, that people try to sometimes sabotage us. We have, for example, problems in getting more views on Facebook, on YouTube, on the contrary of other people who get, of course, their channels never, they get more and more views. They never get closed down. We got closed down 17 channels. We still broadcast today on Facebook and YouTube, but we're also present on band.video in the coming hours, because that at least guarantees us that our presence is always on a platform that, of course, doesn't censor us. So if you have problems in seeing the replays of this video, is simply because it's been censored, and at that point it's on band video. When you touch the subject of the Sabbatean Frankist, you have to be a little bit careful of this, because it's a subject that unfortunately creates a lot a lot of hate, a lot of problems when you start talking and digging deep here. We want to dig deep. We want to dig really deep. So I have actually a bunch of my books, of other authors' books, both here on the computer and stuff that we will be able to cite. So when we talk about 1666, it's not just a date. It's a date that most Christians had in some way associated with the coming of an Antichrist. And really, Sabbatai Zevi might have been this Antichrist in a way, or at least a very powerful Antichrist who inspired very many others. And I think that it's important that today we dedicate some space to this heresy within the Jewish culture, because it has helped creating so many things that went wrong. Even the state of Israel, in a way, at least for Barry Kamish, was a product of the Sabbatean Frankists. Now, I will like Christy to read here a passage, but first of all, let me tell you a second, a brief summary of who we're talking about. Sabbatean Frankism, and this I want to explain to everybody so it's easy. It's called Sabbatean Frankism because, first of all, there was a guy called Sabbatai Zevi. And because the Jews, certain Jews believe in reincarnation, then Jacob Frank, who created his own sect, the Frankist movement, embraced what was left of the Sabbatean movement that went underground, calling themselves Dome, and amplified the whole thing. I think that what was missing, though, from Sabbatai Zevi and his third wife, that became the more known of his wives, was he wasn't very good at promoting himself. Now, let's talk a little bit about Sabbatai Zevi and also about his practices and secrets that very few people know about. So, Sabbatai Zevi was born in 1626. He died in 1676. Though he was initially known simply as a Kabbalah teacher, he wasn't very good at writing and stuff because he was dyslexic. He was a handsome man, tall, had a very charismatic and powerful presence. He was born and he was ordained a rabbi in the city of Izmir in Turkey. At the time it was called Smyrna. And he was likely of Ashkenazi origin. Now, he didn't really claim to be the Messiah until there was another guy who really took on this, his mission seriously and said, convinced him that he had to declare himself worldwide to be the Messiah of the Jewish people, because that was another guy. He's called Nathan of Gaza. He actually lived in the city of Gaza, which later on would become a holy city of the Sabbateans. Sabbatai Zevi was definitely a very particular kind of figure, because he broke from traditional Jewish religion with this very twisted belief that the doing certain things will in turn bring the coming, will bring the end times, basically, a sort of end time scenario. He declared himself officially the Messiah in 1666, thanks to Nathan of Gaza. But there is already certain books and certain archives that cite these books, especially when it comes to Sabbatai Zevi. I would suggest the work of Gershom Scholem, because he was I mean, Gershom Scholem is a very important academic who really is very well known within the Jewish world, who has written some very accurate work, but also had the access to certain archives that were very difficult to find information on this. So Gershom Scholem is known as the main author who talks about Sabbatai Zevi, about the Sabbatean movement. He was a philosopher and historian, and he was widely regarded the founder of modern academic study of Kabbalah, basically. And he was appointed first professor of Jewish mysticism at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. So a very important academic. And I would suggest, if you want to study the Sabbatean Frankist movement, to start from him. Then, of course, I have talked extensively of this subject in volume 4, in volume 8, in volume 7, in volume 9, and we will maybe also pick up a few citations today to make you understand a little bit more about the importance of this heresy. Like I said, there has been various archives, various places where they could find information about the sect, but definitely Salonico and the work that was put together by simply going to the archives of the domain Salonico, which is basically the place also where we have the birth of what will become another, how can I say, another input within the Nazi establishment from the very start. There was, of course, Rudolf von Bottendorf with his lodge, the Thule Lodge, the Thule Gesellschaft, which, of course, initiated Adolf Hitler. So here we have really some elements, because Sabbatai Zevi apparently worked very closely with the Bektashi. Bektashi is a Sufi fraternity, but a very particular one, a very unusual one. See, can we put the air conditioner?
Okay.
Because it's a little bit getting very warm, and we need, of course, to cool down. Now, he amassed by 1666 something like over 1 million believers, half the world's Jewish population during the 17th century believed in Sabbatai Zevi as the Messiah. Things changed, of course, after he was forced into declaring himself immediately after a Muslim, because he was arrested. He was arrested by the Sultan, who will, though, give him a fancy place. He will declare him the gatekeeper of his palace. So he didn't really condemn him. He was expecting to be executed when he was eventually arrested. Also very interesting, he found his third wife when he heard about her. She was somebody who had been forced into becoming Catholic, but then she was a member of the Jewish community. I think she was coming from Holland. She was living in Livorno in Italy, and she was apparently a prostitute. Now, depending on which historians you consult, you have different takes on her. But this woman, Sarah, this woman became the wife of the wife that is most known of Sabbatai Zevi. And with him, then they practice all the sexual magical rituals, which we will talk in detail about today, because we don't want to leave any stone, how you say?
Unturned.
Unturned. So we want to make sure that you understand that the Sabbatean Frankists have done a lot of damage, and that you need to understand these things about the Sabbatean Frankists in order to understand what is really going on in the Middle East today regarding also Israel. So he's considered an heretic by many of his contemporary rabbis. and is still considered an heretic now, because he planned to abolish many of the ritual observances, because according to the Talmud, in the Messianic time, there will no longer be holy obligations. And so he says, as we are in the Messianic time, I am the Messiah, that's it. And so fasting days became days of feasting and rejoicing. Sexual promiscuity, adultery, incest, and religious orgies were encouraged and practiced by Sabbateans. After Sabbatai Zevi's death in 1676, his philosophy will be continued and expanded on by his Kabbalist successor, Jacob Frank. Frankism became the religious movement that, together with Sabbatean, now we call the Sabbatean Frankist. In reality, Jacob Frank was a lot more successful in the propaganda, in expanding it, in also forming an alliance with Mayer, Hampshire, Rothschild, the Illuminati, the Freemasons. The cousin of Jacob Frank became in charge of the Asian Brethren, which became a very important popular Illuminati group. I talk about them in volume 9 as inspiring the Bohemian Club. So here, Christy, you have a pair of glasses.
I don't need it for a book. I only need it for the computer.
Okay, so this gives you an idea, because you have to understand, guys, everything that is wrong today comes from mainly two groups, the Jesuits and the Sabbatean Frankists. Then, of course, the Illuminati are the agents, but the Illuminati are just agents of a much larger plot. So we tend to not really want to understand the Sabbatean Frankist heresy, and today I will try to explain you better. And after, we're going to go into the ritual of the Sabbatean and how the rituals work.
Okay. So from the real war?
Yes.
Okay.
This is, first of all, let's explain who this guy is. I'm citing my old friend, the late Barry Kamish, who was somebody who lived in Israel and who understood this conspiracy. So I think it's very important. Now let's see if we can maybe start from, I think from, okay, I think that this will be good, to start
the
from
whole
there.
thing?
Yeah.
Okay. The real war against the Jews and humanity. In 1932, how many organizations in Germany represented German Jewry? Over 250. In 1933, how many? One and one only. Labor Zionism. We will return to the significance shortly. First, Rabbi Altman's account continues. To corrupt the Jews, the Frankists adopted at first a humane policy of sorts. With Rothschild money and Jesuit power, the so-called Enlightenment was initiated by the German Jewish apostate Moses Mendelssohn. Napoleon was financed to liberate the Jews wherever he conquered, and from Germany, the reform and conservative movements were financed to further dilute the faith and introduce totally foreign concepts to their congregations. But the pace wasn't fast enough. The ornery Jews just weren't cooperating with evil, so those stubbornly accepting Torah morality would have to be removed permanently, and only those practicing Shabbatainism would be permitted to survive. Yes, in the 2,000 years of European Jewish history, there were pogroms, crusades, and inquisitions, the latter aided and abetted by the Jesuits. But compared to what happened from the 1880s on, life was a tolerable picnic. The turning point in the final war against the Jews was the founding of Zionism by the Shabbateans. The final aim...
The Sabbatians.
Sabbatians.
Oh,
Okay, sorry, they put
Sabbatians.
Sorry,
I would say one thing, though, regarding this point that Barry puts through. We have done already an episode regarding Zionism, if you remember, and the origins of Israel. And what I noticed is that I think that initially there was a genuine form of Zionism that was nationalistic, it wasn't leftist, it wasn't socialist, but they were immediately taken over. And he really puts it right from the start, the corruption. I think that maybe in the first 2 or 3 years, they actually managed to avoid the infiltration altogether. But I think that, of course, it's a point of view. Please continue.
Okay, so the final aim of the movement was to establish a Sabbatean state in the historical land of the Jews, thus taking over Judaism for good. To foment the idea, life had to be made so tolerable for Europe's Jews that escape to Palestine would appear to be the best option. The Cossack pogroms were the first shot in this campaign, and for them, the Frankists turned to the Jesuits and their influence over the Catholic Church. Okay, the Jesuits had done more to spread communism, beginning with their feudal communes in South America.
Like you see, here we have the Jesuits.
South America.
Yes, and I talked about this kind of thing. By the way, in Volume 4 of my Confessions, I actually talk about the connection between the Sabbatean Frankists, the Jesuits, and the secret societies that in turn worked with these two factions that are at the top of the pyramid of the New World Disorder or order, however you want to call it. People focus on the Illuminati. Once again, I want to focus on who is controlling the Illuminati here. In this case, the economic side always came from the Sabbatean Frankists. In Volume 8 of my Confessions, I also showed how the Sabbatean Frankists landed in Hollywood and founded their ideal ground for propaganda. Now we are a few hours from the Oscars, and that is really the epitome of Sabbatean Frankism in their art of propaganda, which they are masters of, but not because of Sabbatai, but because of Nathan of Gaza, somebody which we will be discussing in a second.
Okay. In South America, and now they wanted to punish I gotta take this out because it's bothering.
Sure.
And now they wanted to punish the anti-papists of Europe by imprisoning them behind communal bars. The deal was simple. The Jesuits provided the Cossacks, the Frankists, the communists, and naturally the Rothschilds would provide the mullah. The mullahs.
The mullahs is the Islamic.
Mullah, it's not. They call mullah money mullah.
Yeah?
Yeah, they call money mullah.
Maybe that is.
I think it's the mullah, like the money.
Okay, here we're talking.
It's
also, we
here.
go towards Balfour Declaration, but go, please read.
Okay, sorry.
No.
Once the situation turned foreboding, the German writing intellectuals took over. In Vienna in 1885, the journalist Nathan Birnbaum fired the opening salvo, which successfully planted the fast-growing seeds of Zionism. He was followed by another Vienna writer, Peretz Smolskin, who provided more intellectual justification for returning to a safe home in Israel. However, neither man had the charisma of still another Vienna writer, Theodor Herzl, who could rally the masses as
so
neither
Theodor
of them...
Herzl, we discussed him in the previous lecture in the Illuminati Occult when we discussed Zionism, and he was the guy who gave birth to the Zionist movement. Here, however, it explains how in 1901 Herzl appeared in Britain, where he was not well received. We are told he backed another option, creating a Jewish sanctuary in British-controlled East Africa, and Then this was highly fortunate for the British females doing the Sabbateans' bidding, for they replaced Herzl with one of their own, because he failed, basically, a German well-educated Jew named Chaim Weizmann. In time, this basically...
The cockamamie legend was fabricated.
Involving the Balfour Declaration, creating a Jewish homeland in Palestine as a reward for Weizmann finding a way to make acetone form explosive from dyed-up paint. Not one explosion in World War I came from this magic process, but the British took great pains to capture Palestine from the Turks and appoint the leaders of the upcoming Sabbatean state. So this is, of course, the point of view of Barry Camish. We might not agree with everything he writes, but if you want to know, of course, more about also the the Sabbatian Frankists, there is also the work of Rabbi Marvin Anterman. And in this case, there is definitely some interesting points that can be picked up. But first of all, let me go back to Nathan of Gaza. And really, it's important we know all the characters at the basis of this new religion, because it became a new religion. Now, this new religion had sprang from what is known as Lurianic Kabbalah. Lurianic Kabbalah, basically, it's something that is still revered, but in the Sabbatian mystical tradition, it will become deviated. They will interpret it in a deviated way. And so they had a different understanding of the Kabbalistic in the way they were interpreting this Lurianic Kabbalah. Lurianic Kabbalah influenced a lot. It's a school of Kabbalah named after a guy called Isaac Luria, who lived between 1534 and 1572. But you don't have to generalize your Lurianic Kabbalah, and say it's Sabbatian Frankism, or it's, like a lot of people simplistically say, that is Sabbatian. No, Sabbatian Frankism didn't exist at the time. And it actually, the Lurianic thought developed in various ways. And I think that a lot of Jewish people will be pretty angry if you tell them that it's only associated with the Sabbatian mystical heresies. So it's been accused of being the cause of the spread of the Sabbatian Messiah Shabbatai Zevi and Jacob Frank and their Kabbalistically based heresies, but it's something somehow different. So we need to specify that. Isaac Luria emphasized, of course, the democratic person, the role of the person in redeeming the fallen sparks of holiness wherever they could be found. This kind of allocating the Messiah only as a conclusive arrival in this process. And because, of course, Shabbatai Zevi claimed he was the Messiah, but before he claimed he was the Messiah, he had a prophet, and that guy was Nathan of Gaza, who interpreted his messianic role as pivotal in reclaiming those sparks lost in impunity, and says, you have to believe in yourself. You have to be the Messiah. So who was this guy, Nathan of Gaza? Well, Nathan of Gaza was born in 1643, will die in 1680. So just 4 years after his friend Shabbatai Zevi. He was a theologian and author. On the contrary of Shabbatai Zevi, who couldn't really write very well because he was, like we said, dyslexic. After his marriage, he moved to Gaza in 1663, where he became famous as a prophet to Shabbatai Zevi. Once they encountered, he talked to Shabbatai Zevi, saw something special in Shabbatai Zevi, and he invited him to to declare himself as the Messiah. However, there is also some writings that seem to indicate that even before the meeting with Nathan of Gaza, there was some dreams that Nathan of Gaza had of Shabbatai Zevi, and it seems like Shabbatai Zevi had already talked to his small following about the fact he was a Messiah, though this is not totally asserted. There was a vision. That Nathan of Gaza had, and in this vision he seemed to have seen the coming of Shabbatai Zevi, that he would be the Messiah. Now, what were these rituals that were practiced by these people, and how they were practiced? So what happens is that they were involved in a gematria interpretation of sexual magic. He will invite his wife to then sleep with a number of men in various positions, everything had to be all what is gematria? First of all, let's explain it. Gematria is the practice of assigning a numerical value to a name, word, or phrase by reading it as a number, or sometimes by using an alphanumerical cipher. Now, they assigned the most common form of Hebrew gematria is used in the Talmud and the Midrash, and it's also elaborated by many post-Talmudic commentators. So it is something they assign, basically, words and sentences as numbers, assigning numerical instead of phonetic value to each letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Now, mixing the name Sabbatai Zevi or his various initiatic names with certain things, they will get an interpretation that then will put extract Sabbatai Zevi that sometimes will go into a state of trance into the various sexual positions that then they will do during these sexual orgies. No, it sounds pretty sick. I know it's.
I don't have any comment.
It's pretty. It's. I mean, if you thought Aleister Crowley was sick, this guy was much sicker. I mean, and the things around him in 1666 were all really far out stuff. But in any case, he, declared himself a Messiah, but he was born in. Let's talk a little bit about how he started. He was born in 1626. His father was a rich merchant, an activity that he inherited from his brothers. He was, since his infancy, he had a propensity for religious studies. So the family, a Jewish family, thought it was good to send him to have a rabbinical career. And like it happened for many young Jews, the discovery of the Kabbalah, in this case the Lurianic Kabbalah we mentioned earlier, will then push him into a research of a less conformist kind of religious approach, less orthodox, let's say, respect to what are the official studies. Sabbatai had some weak spots in his personality. Physically, he was a good-looking man, tall, dark, with a very powerful voice. People liked him because he was kind of happy guy. He transmits a lot of energy, but he also went through phases in which he was very depressed. So he was a little bit weird here.
Is that bipolar?
It seemed some kind of bipolar tendency. In the moments in which he was feeling well, he was very sociable. In the moments in which he was emanating a particular light that people find very charismatic, he was an excellent orator. He wasn't maybe good at writing, but he was excellent at talking. He will conquer any form of audience, especially on the mysteries of the Kabbalah. He will create a following around him. So
a lot of magnetism then.
Yes, a lot of magnetism. Aquini, who was Sabbatean, said in 1658 that Sabbatai Zevi got revealed a new law and new commandments that they were destined to change the last part of redemption. So this is in a citation from this document, the Jewish word which is to bring, show you, how you say, to melt the connection, the human connection in Jewish Asurim. It's transformed in a game of words in Isurim, which actually means to give up all your religious obligations. So he kind of played around with words. Sabbatai, apparently, like I said, officially he was declared the Messiah by Nathan of Gaza in 1666, but I think that was also because of the year. The year was very particular, so they knew that the Christians, the Christian calendar 1666, they're all waiting for something, So they played a little bit, I think, on that. While instead, there seems to have been a reduced form of manifestation already in 1648, but then for 17 years, no news will go outside of his very restricted circle. In this phase, of course, the third wife, Sarah, we don't know much about the first two wives. We know that when he heard about this woman who said she wanted to marry the Messiah and she was prostituting himself around Livorno, he was in Cairo and he just left and went there. She was a Jewish of Dutch origins, though we all heard about her beauty. She was very beautiful. They said she was very, but actually also the wife of Jacob Frank, apparently, who was into the same kind of things, had a very beautiful wife. So they were into, now his enemies said that she was a prostitute, but they always said it wasn't true. But who knows? This is at least what it was said within the Jewish world. They said that when she was young, she was forced into conversion to Christianity, and then she had been going around Europe, stopped herself for a long time in Italy, and she ended up in the Livorno, which is on the coast. And she had a vision. The wife, Sarah, had a vision that convinced her that she was predestined to marry the Messiah, that she should find this Messiah. So Sabbatai himself was also dreaming about this woman that she will find, and they found each other. They managed to find each other. Sabbatai Zevi at this point gave birth to what the Illuminati call the fourth ritual, the major ritual. There has been a series of rituals in the creation of mankind, and it says that during the 17th century, they were giving birth to this fourth ritual that will manifest the age of reason. Another thing is very important here. The fourth ritual, the fourth major ritual, will be founded on sexual magic. And another strange thing about Sabbatai Zevi, he discussed also the figure of Jesus. Of course, in a very heretical way, he claimed that Jesus was a drop of sperm in Adam Cadmon's masturbation. I mean, it's pretty far out stuff, guys. So
that's just so evil.
It's so evil and perverted, but I'm telling you, Sabbatai Zevi's perspective here, because it's very important. Somebody is following us from Turkey. They know very well that the Ataturk, the founder of modern Turkey, was a Dome himself. He was a Sabbatian Frankist. So, I mean, this has influenced a lot. This is not just one of the initiatic names of Sabbatai Zevi was Amira. So Amira was mixed also using gematria with the then Sabbatai Zevi had a symbol. The numerical symbol of Sabbatai Zevi corresponded to the symbol of a pharaoh. So, imagine this, guys. You thought that Aleister Crowley was out of it. Aleister Crowley was just a novice compared to Sabbatai Zevi, and actually Aleister Crowley was inspired by disciples of intern of Jacob Frank, we can say, without the Theosophical Society, not direct disciple, but let's say that people who manifested from that current. Jacob Frank was born in Ukraine, by the way. So we have a lot of Sabbatian Frankists who were in today's Ukraine, at the time part of Poland. Usually these orgies could have a number that varied from 1 person to 36 people. So it was it was known as the internal ring. And this internal ring, it was made of 36 people that interacted sexually also with Sarah, observing certain positions, interpreting them with gematria. So just giving you a now another exception. There was an exception though, apart from the calculation that was done by mixing his name with the other names and calculating the numbers and coming up with weird positions. Because this is weird, guys. Another thing will happen, Sabbatai Zevi will go in trance, and during the state of trance, he will come up with strange sexual actions that will then become the model that were replicated with the most exact precision in the execution of the rite.
Do they sacrifice things too?
I don't really know, and I don't think they necessarily sacrifice things, but everything is possible here, because I mean, if we have to judge by what then the disciples of the Sabbatean Frankist movement did later on, I mean, anything is possible. However, there was definitely something in these rituals, something that gave them the possibility to develop and to be present, because even after even after he himself declared himself to be Muslim and lost most of that over 1 million followers he had, because still there was I mean, we talked here about also Jacob Frank, who followed Sabbatai Zevi. Jacob Frank was himself also a rebel. He was a merchant. He went to Turkey, and there he found the Domme. What are the Domme? Domme are crypto Jews who, like Sabbatai Zevi, officially converted to Islam, but in secret practice Judaism and practice the religion of Sabbatai Zevi.
Really?
Yeah, because like we said, they were forced into this. So the Domme is basically, and they still exist, the Domme in Turkey, and they are also at the, I mean, the Domme and the Bektashi then influence, of course, also Nazism, but the Domme, let's check out, because Sabbatai Zevi liked to work also with the Sufis. The Sufis, we said, and we recently discussed it, you can go and check in previous episodes. We had episode number 48 of the Exploring the Illuminati, dedicated to the dark side of Sufism. He's always been very Gnostic. So he found himself, Sabbatai Zevi, a natural ally in the Sufis to do his things, also outside of the boundaries of Judaism. So this also is something that is very important. The Domme, yeah, you can find also here on, I can show, so if somebody after wants to go and Domme, Ottoman Turkish group of Sabbatian crypto Jews, Sabbatians, so a very Jewish follower, Sabbatian crypto Jew in the Ottoman Empire, converted outwardly to Islam, but retained a Jewish faith and Kabbalistic beliefs in secret. So there's nothing really secret about what we are telling you. It's just that people don't seem to understand.
History.
It's history. And
they call you in your lodge the great historian.
Yes.
When you were in a lodge.
Yeah, well, I was in various lodges, but yes, definitely I was the historian of the Monte Carlo Lodge. And that was my...
You're a great historian.
So, well, I'm a great historian. I try to also dig deep in things that people apparently are not interested in, but then these things really influence.
They're interesting, though.
And they influence the society very much, no?
Yeah.
Now, here it says that Sabbatai Zevi was a Sephardic Jewish rabbi. Other sources says he was Ashkenazi. Nathan of Gaza was definitely Ashkenazi. it's possible that he was instead Sephardic. This we don't know. However, more things need to be said about this whole ordeal of Shabbatai Zevi with Nathan of Gaza, because Nathan of Gaza was definitely the guy who promoted and launched the Sabbatian movement, and launched also the idea for Jews to come back to their promised land. So there is a first form of, because we saw how some people like Barry Kamish even think that, the Israel is really a product of the Sabbatian Frankist from the very start. But in any case, Nathanael of Gaza was born in Jerusalem. After he tried to convince the rabbinical council to convert to Shabbatai Zevi, he then nominated Gaza the holy city of the Sabbatian movement. That didn't really go well with the karma of this place. Gaza was also, by the way, a city of the Knights Templars before that. So there was definitely, in fact, some people say in Smyrna, mostly they are Sephardic, not Ashkenazi. However, I'm just citing you some people within the academic world who claim that he was also Ashkenazi. I mean, I'm just telling you what. In this case, an Italian historian called Daniele Mansuino, who is, but he's probably wrong, because I myself thought it would be very strange that he was not Sephardic, to tell you the truth. But Nathan of Gaza is a different thing. Nathan of Gaza is definitely a different thing. So regarding the fact that Shabbatai Zevi became Muslim, Nathan of Gaza wasn't disappointed about this conversion. He actually tried to find a justification for this act, which was kind of cowardly, because he went back to Turkey. He was arrested. He went in front of the Sultan. And as soon as the Sultan said, well, you can choose between the turban or having your head off, the turban meaning Islam, at that point he chose the turban, and he converted, and he gave himself even a Muslim name like Mehmet, I don't know, like Mohammed the Great, something like that. So I mean, that was he wanted to preserve his life. At the same time, Nathan of Gaza didn't give up on the expansion of his religion. And Sultan himself giving him also this position of gatekeeper, of kind of like his portinaio, it was an important thing. Sabbatei had appeared into a dream of Nathan of Gaza, and that's why Nathan of Gaza became convinced that he was the Messiah. Shabbatai Zevi was still very young when he said to have discovered the mystery of the divinity and the forms of creation, and having led himself in what the Kabbalists describe as the Ein Sof, which is the absolute, and in what is the Tiferet. In the Sephirot you have, of course, you studied the whole thing. You have certain points. Your experience wasn't positive, though, in the study of certain of the Sephirot, no?
The Kabbalah? No.
It wasn't.
No, it wasn't. It was terrible.
Because also,
and I should have never been doing any of that stuff. It was because I picked up crystals and I started in on that New Age crap, and it ruined my life.
Absolutely. I mean, if I think that I'm always in my books I say Kabbalah is a serious thing, and you shouldn't just play with it.
No, it's not something to play around with.
Absolutely.
Like, you're gonna go hopping around the different parts of it. Like it's just like a game. It's not. I never even did anything anyway. I never did anything. I just opened these books and read them, and that was enough to ruin my life. So never again. Of course, never again. God straightened me out. So I'm like with God now. So that's
having
it.
said that, I mean, if you are Jewish, if you are studying Kabbalah in a legitimate way, that is something that you can do. But I think also it's part of a tradition that you have to follow with the legitimate line of succession, legitimate teachers.
Yeah. Same with like, I don't know, I kind of, because I was mixing around with that New Age stuff and Buddhism as well. And I don't know, I just think that, you know, I think it's not part of my culture to be, you know, Japanese Buddhist, you know, so it just didn't feel right. I mean, I don't know. I like the philosophy of what was being said about the Buddhist religion. And I found the Japanese people to be very, very tranquil people. And I really admired that about them. And so that's why. And there's some things I like about Buddhism. And I would keep, you know, I wouldn't say anything bad about. I just don't like religion at all. So.
Now, going back to Shabbatai Zevi, he, of course, went into all that klipot. You know, in the Zohar, in Lurianic Kabbalah, in Hermetic Kabbalah, you have the klipot, which is basically a representation of evil, of impure spiritual forces. And because he was indulging in this impurity, he kind of indulged in these rituals and the mixing elements of sexual magic, these clipotic things. So on the 31st of May, 1665, in Gaza, Shabbatai Zevi arrived in Gaza. He arrived suddenly in the synagogue there in Gaza and started to preach. People who were there that day said that he had some kind of really weird light, that it was impossible to just, it was too strong, this light. And so basically, it was there that he declared officially to be the Messiah of Israel. And then, of course, Nathan of Gaza will spread the word, and he was there, you know, he was in Nathan's of Gaza's place, basically. And he then left for a long trip, so to spread the word about the fact that the 12 tribes of Israel had to come back to Israel, and that he was the Messiah. So one thing that he said about Jesus, though, that could have been interpreted as being, of course, scandalous for the Jews, but in a positive light from the Christians, was at one point he said, why do you criticize Jesus? I think I will reevaluate him in some way. And that kind of didn't, of course, go on very well with the traditional Jews that were a little bit... but one of the main jobs of the Messianic tradition is to bring back all the exiled people, all the people in the diaspora back to Israel. So that was then became the... it kind of became a big scandal in the Jewish world when the chief rabbi of Jerusalem converted apparently to the Sabbatean faith. And so that was, and then in Aleppo, where they even said that the prophet Eliah had appeared announcing Shabbatai Zevi. I mean, in a few months, there was a lot of believers that were coming together. In Salonico, there were 50,000. There were thousands all over. In America, when they received news of what was going on, that the Messiah had manifested, it arrived even there. So it arrived on the other side of the ocean. And I mean, it was a very young America, but already. So this is basically the mystery that he was talking about. The divinity was elaborated in a scheme a numerical scheme. 1-2-1 was the scheme that he talked about. And it was formalized in an apocalypse of Abram that was elaborated for the major, was elaborated by Nathan of Gaza. So between the winter of 1665 and 1666, Sabbatai Zevi was definitely considered the guy who had the more strong following in this kind of. And in those days, you see, in 1666, the Christians at the same time were thinking that something will happen with it was the number of the beast, that something will manifest, and that maybe the Jews will convert to Christianity before the second coming. So there was various things that were happening also in the Christian world. So the resonance of this announcement that was made in the city of Gaza, I think, cursed that place forever. I think that is, of course, at the time initially it had a very big, strong impact. The moment in which, of course, after he was arrested and eventually was forced to convert to Islam, he lost a lot of his following, but still he retained a bit of it, and that following that he retained will eventually influence Jacob Frank, who himself, though, was born within a more Catholic environment, and he got 20,000 Jews to convert to Christianity, to Catholicism, in exchange of a palace and to be nobilitated and becoming basically an aristocrat, having though he will also be arrested by the Inquisition for his practices that were just as outrageous as the one of Sabbatai Zevi. In the course of time, this religion will stay underground. The fact that they could practice in secret, that they could practice this crypto Judaism, that they didn't have to, they could be Catholic in a Catholic country, they could be Muslim in a Muslim country, they could be anything. He hides the reality of what these people are doing still to this day, because they didn't disappear. They stayed. They became very influential, especially with certain secret societies in the Western world, the Illuminati. And in fact, that's where I want Christy to read here from volume 8 of my Confessions. Here, regarding the influence within the Illuminati, here, this paragraph.
I was just looking for the beginning of it.
Okay,
the lodge.
You can start from here.
Okay. This book is heavy.
Heavy book. It's heavy book.
I need my knee. The latter, also known as Asiatisch Bruder.
That is the Asiatic Brethren we talked about. The cousin of Jacob Frank.
Asiatisch Bruder. That's German.
Yes, in a time in which the Jews didn't have access to Masonic lodges in the Prussian lodges, he gave the possibility to Jews to enter Freemasonry with the creation of this system and the Illuminati, and it was known as the Asiatic Bruder.
It gave life to a syncretic rite, the purpose of which was to unite Judaism with Christianity, and according to the Israeli philosopher and theologian Gershom Scholem, they closely resembled the creed of the Sabbateans. The lodge in question was set up by the Sabbatean Jew Moses Dubrushka, better known after his conversion to Catholicism and his subsequent ennobling in 1775 as Franz Thomas Elder von Schoenfeld, none other than the first cousin of Jacob Frank, successor of Sabbatai Zevi, who claimed to be the reincarnation and founder of Sabbatean Frankism. Franz Thomas Elder von Schoenfeld will change his name again in 1792 upon the death of Amschel. Here comes all the names in your book. Amschel Mayer Rothschild, when traveling to Paris on a mission on behalf of the Illuminati to join as Junius Frey. He is sentenced to death only 2 years later in 1794.
So just to make it a synthesis for the people here, of course, if they want, they can go and read.
This was the easy book too.
But it's important.
You're so smart.
No, but this book
it's such a good
is
book.
Important because it makes you understand the influence that they had with the Rothschild family. Is a Sabbatean Frankist family. That's something that you need to realize.
That's a book about Hollywood.
And it's a book about the influence they had on Hollywood, on the music, on the cinema business, on the whole.
Shocking, really.
It's and here you have the Pope with a member of the Rothschild, Sabbatean Frankist, and I explain in volume 4 all the various connections of Sabbatei Zevi and Jacob Frank with Freemasonry, with people also like, and I talk about the domain, everything else. So these things you can find in my book, as well as volume 9, where I also show the connection with the birth of the Bohemian Club through the Schalarafia, the Illuminati in Germany gave birth to these Schalarafia lodges, and then we have, of course, volume 7 here, the Sabbatean Frankists are very important because let's remember that Rabbi Marvin Antelman also excommunicated in a ritual Henry Kissinger, who was the mentor of Klaus Schwab, one of the key people of this New World Disorder. Here we have, in fact, an image of Jacob Frank in Offerman in Germany, and next we have Klaus Schwab. So just
evil.
Pretty evil. But here I wanted you to read this passage here from here. Sabbatean Frankie, that I would like to clear.
Okay, about the truth about Sabbatean Frankism, which I would like to clear up once and for all to all my readers right now. Number 1, communism, Marx. Number 2,
these are the movements that have emanated from Sabbatean Frankism in one way or the other. So,
number 1, communism.
Karl Marx. Sexual depravity, Sigmund Freud. Third,
corporate leftism, Bernays.
4th, multiculturalism, Horace Cullen.
5th is deconstructivism, critical theory, Walter Benjamin.
Frankfurt School, Adorno, I talk also about it in volume 8 of my Confessions.
Radical jurisprudence,
Brandes Frankfurter, and
Cardozo.
And then we have large-scale non-selective immigration, which is another product of Sabbatean Frankism. And here it says, what do these influential ideologies all have in common? The answer is plain and simple, that they are all linked to the Sabbatean Frankists, a distinct quasi-satanic schemes within Jewry that profoundly influence both Freemasonry and the Illuminati, which I discuss in detail in volume 4 of my Confession. I discuss also in detail in volume 7. I discuss also in detail in volume 8 and in volume 9. So, get my books if you want to know, of course, more. We only scratch the surface here with 90 minutes. It's not possible for us to do more. But in order to understand a little bit more, I think we need to study. it's just like scratching the surface.
Yeah.
It's such a complex subject.
Everybody needs to
it goes
study.
in many names.
It's hard to
Even Frankenstein, character Frankenstein, Frank, apparently, like Rabbi Marvin Alterman said, was connected to the Frankist.
Wow.
We had the Count Cagliostro, who was a disciple of Dr. Falk, who was a Sabbatian Frankist, or at least a Sabbatian, and definitely a person of great importance within the Illuminati network at this time. And then we have many other figures. Max Theon, who was the mentor of Madame Blavatsky of the Theosophical Society. Guys, it's all, and the golem itself could be a creation of a cyber Satan to come, in the way it's really a projection of something.
Jesus
to save us in a way or another. It would be very interesting to discuss the subject more, but I will definitely invite you to go back into the previous exploring the Illuminati episodes, which have a lot of content regarding what we have discussed today.
All last year.
Other aspects of it. So let's
All
say
last year.
today I wanted to expose the Sabbatian Frankists because definitely they are involved in 9/11. They are involved in the 7th of October. But remember, their connection also with the Sufis, Gnostics. They are themselves a Gnostic movement. These are the Illuminati. They work and they sabotage religions. They undermine them. In the end, they take over the show. And what they're doing now with the creation of the one world religion with Pope Francis is obvious. And we need to, of course, realize that before it's too late and not fall into the trap of anti-Semitism. I always say that, because Zionism was taken over by these people. But of course, the majority of Jewish people, they don't have a clue, guys, about certain things. I mean, even Rabbi Alterman was very clear about the fact that a lot of people living in Israel today didn't really have an understanding. And so I think that it's important to study. I wish we had more time, really, Christy. I wish we had more time, because so much that we could discuss and so much that we should have discussed. But the problem is that we don't have the time, guys. We simply don't have the time. According to Reverend Robert Graham, who was a Jesuit, who I have one book here. He was an expert of espionage. He was the head of counter-espionage in the Vatican. The Nazi extermination machine was invented by a Roman Catholic theologian, but the connection was there also with the Sabbatian Frankists. Even Adolf Hitler is said to be a product of the Sabbatian Frankists, born out of a ritual. That's what Marvin Antelman also discusses. And there is always a connection with the Sufis, Islam, who, like I said, they inspired the Holocaust. Now maybe they're getting a little bit of the karma back. It's all terrible. I hope that humankind can find some equilibrium, and we need to pray for this equilibrium, because we are all brothers and sisters, and we need to understand each other regardless of these religious divisions, these political divisions that are increasing in the era of social networks. And we are becoming more and more divided.
It's all going the way they plan. It's all supposed to be like this.
Dividi et impera used to say the Latins, the Romans. And for this reason, when you see what's happened with Joe Biden, who was like, Joe Biden is but also with these woke influencers. Look at these woke influencers. Look at this. Look at what she's saying.
15 promises he has made if he is reelected. You may have heard of Project 2025, but this is from Agenda 47, and you can read all of these on his website. First, he promises that he will carry out the largest domestic deportation operation in history. He will also ask for the death sentence for...
Yeah, sure.
It's all
Doom and
garbage.
gloom.
We can't listen to this anymore.
Doom and gloom.
It's all hate. It's all garbage. We need to step away from that. And I have a fun fact I want to add before. Are you going to put the dance on?
Yeah, well, last news that I wanted to give.
Okay, we're still doing news.
No. Well, the last news I wanted to give today, because it's regarding Italy. This gentleman here, Leo Terroni, he has the same name I have, is trying now to claim the legitimacy of the recent elections that actually voted him as Grandmaster in Italy. But he's having problems because the Calabrese mafia, the ones that fought me in Italy, are giving him a hard time.
I wonder why.
So Leo Terroni, who by the way even wished me a birthday on 5th of March on my wall, we wish him good luck for this battle, which is trying to fight to eliminate the mafia from Italian Freemasonry. Now, it's an impossible mission, but we wish Leo the best of luck. Okay?
Yeah.
He really needs them. I mean, he was elected in a legitimate way. They are contesting his election. The mafia is trying to stop so they can place their own person there. It's just
horrible.
Crazy. It's
Those
just
Italians
terrible.
are terrible.
Corruption.
Terrible, corrupt.
Corruption.
Learn the hard way. I only want good things. That's why I came
we
to
started
America.
Exploring the Illuminati.
Well, I have a fun fact, and you're going to squash it.
No, I wanted to just say that we forgot to put the Exploring the Illuminati team.
Well, you're running the show.
Well, that's it. So now
I wouldn't have forgot.
We put it in the end.
Well, no, I have to say something.
Okay, say something.
No, I was taking Rambo out the other day, and he has a sweatshirt, and it says Zagami on it. And so he was walking out the door, and he was upside down, and I saw MAGA. It was the first time I noticed that Zagami, and right in there is MAGA is like in Zagami. You were talking about gematria, and so then I thought it's like an anagram, right?
Yeah,
Is that called an anagram?
I guess so.
So anyway, I saw MAGA. MAGA is in Zagami, and Oracle Trump.
Oh, Don, you're a little controversial. You're talking about illegal immigration.
I wasn't talking about that.
You're not thinking about that. Okay, now we can, of course, after the little touch of music that we usually play.
What about our other? Are we dancing to themes?
Well, now we're going for.
Are you gonna mix it?
Well, we're gonna go for as usual because we like this. It's becoming a classic. Thank you for following the Leo Zagami Show. We see you next week. Christy, can you thank the sponsors?
Thank you, Bruce and Margarizada, and you forgot Rambo. I'm gonna get him.
Get Rambo, and in the meantime, I'm gonna also show to all our viewers a way you can sustain us, which is GoFundMe. Let's put it here. GoFundMe, guys.
Look,
please. Now we're gonna put just a second.
I can't do it. There you go.
Sorry. I can't find the right one. Okay.
You can have your social
you want to show yourself to the audience? Ecco!
One by one. Now even if you make me stronger, that ain't gonna make me
God bless
no
you
longer.
all.
So even if I go to
We're gonna have a great week. It's gonna be
It's gonna be a great week, and please support the show. Purchase a book or maybe a donation, and we will bring you many more shows to come. God bless America.